So a word on post-EHR process improvement and a couple of other words on principles of process improvement. I hope that via these case studies we have sufficiently focused on issues other than EHR implementation and optimization so that you will appreciate that workflow and process improvement is not just a function associated with EHRs. And I mention this because when EHRs were first introduced to the masses with the federal meaningful use of EHR incentive program, there was much emphasis on workflow and process improvement. This was absolutely needed because the EHR did in fact result and should have resulted in many workflow and process changes, certainly with the intent of improvement, although in some cases with some unintended consequences. We can still do much better, both with the EHRs we have and in their design. But there are many processes not directly associated with automation that need workflow and process attention. The fact that increasingly the patient is the primary contractor or general contractor in coordinating our own care is something that we can't really be very proud of. Thank goodness we have that, but many people don't have the savvy or will to do so, or even the ability physically due to illness to be able to do this. Some EHRs help improve, some help in improving the use of EHRs is still needed. Some may call for additional automation as we make improvements or changes in workflow, and certainly many workflow and process improvements contribute to improved overall interoperability. So we know electronic health records are maligned, but there are also many who are finding benefits, such as increased staff productivity because they aren't wasting time looking for charts and performing paper processes. People are getting home on time because documentation is finished. This is especially true for physicians who oftentimes even took their charts home with them. The ability to see more patients without extending hours and more patients seeking care because communications are more efficient and there are fewer hassles for patients. And this is increasingly true now of EHRs. And there are fewer near misses due to alerts and reminders. We may not be able to quantify these. We may not want to quantify them because we still want to see many more improvements in EHRs. But you get a lot of anecdotal evidence that this is occurring. Just the same, the best case EHR scenario is one in which there is continual process improvement. Reporting functionality, even if better is desired, is by far better than none in the paper environment. Embedded protocols can help all staff and providers ensure they are doing what needs to be done and have the most current practice guidelines available to them. And EHR vendors continuously improve, such as by adding functionality, adopting better interfaces, user interfaces, and building additional applications, and so forth. To conclude this unit, I've tried to end on some positive notes. A positive case study, the fact that EHRs are contributing to improved process and workflows, and there are people who are starting to think about principles that will overall improve the healthcare process as it is currently managed today. There is a list of such principles that Amit Kothari in 2016 identified in a blog. And the first one that I want to mention is actually the last one on his list. Providers really do want improvement. These include improved utilization and flow of emergency departments, inpatient procedures, and admission procedures, and eliminating variability in orders, clinical decision-making, diagnostic processes, and discharge processes. These were identified in a recent study by McKinsey as directly from a survey of physicians. With respect to the rest of Kothari's list of principles, here are my thoughts. Fixing critical processes first is an excellent way to prioritize because too much disruption or change in processes is difficult for staff. He recommends starting with data, and I do believe that starting with data is essential. Mapping and root cause analysis must be performed or mistakes will be made in attempting to fix processes. Focus on process, not people. And I say, but don't forget people. The focus on process, not people, helps people recognize that they are not to blame, which yields a much better approach to improvement and greater willingness to make the changes that will lead to improvement. Get new processes adopted. This may seem like a strange statement, but everyone has seen where process improvement activities have been undertaken only not to be implemented. Stakeholders will soon recognize that the organization is not serious about improvement and will further efforts to improve. Constantly improved processes, or what we sometimes call continual improvement, is needed because nothing in life is static. As soon as a process is improved, it is very likely there is change somewhere that will impact the process and more or different improvement will be needed. This is not, however, a statement that doesn't align with the need to focus on critical processes first. In fact, constantly improving processes should be a process baked into every process. Eliminate fear for improved deployment addresses the human nature to be suspicious of change. Using champions of change who are peers and celebrating even the smallest degree of success will help overcome fear. Break down barriers and silos. Everyone is going to be needed to provide the value in healthcare. There is no reason to compete for something we all want and we all can achieve. Finally, stop seeking perfection is an admonition that is difficult to get people to believe in, especially in healthcare. But sometimes the mere fact that we are working to be perfect creates more mistakes. Kothari here suggests eliminating slogans and exhortations for zero defects and simply getting down to doing better. So this concludes the second lecture in Unit 7 on workflow interoperability, and in particular workflow and process improvement. I hope you've gained not only a more in-depth understanding of workflow and process improvement if you came to this lecture with only cursory knowledge, but also an appreciation for the need for workflow and process improvement, both as we make the transition to value-based care and for continuous improvement in general. Value-based care requires coordinating care across the continuum, and these case studies certainly reflect that such is needed. Even if we aren't fully engaged in value-based care yet, these improvements will certainly help on many areas. While for this lecture I've relied on personally known case studies, I do want to draw your attention to some useful references. And after you've taken the assessment for this unit, I look forward to delivering the final set of lectures in Unit 8 on population health management, where we are going to focus on some of the key tools that are unique for value-based care.